Hi there, my name's Dr. Marcus Bussey and I'm your lecturer and course coordinator for HIS140 Global Citizens, A History of Humanity. It's a real pleasure to be with you and to introduce you to this course today. This is a very short, snappy little introduction. I'm going to outline some key elements of the course for you and basically just get you started a little. First of all, the course is asking a big question, very big question. How do we get here? And here means COVID, it means the bushfires, it means climate change, it means the incredible speed of the industrial and technological age that we've lived through and are still living in. It means also, how do we get here as a species? How is it that every single step of the way from the Big Bang through to now, we, in a sense, have been present because all the atoms and molecules that exist to frame us as living and breathing creatures have been part of the cosmic palette from the very beginning. Big questions. How does that relate to history? Well, it relates to history in the sense that all these elements come together and coalesce in certain forms. Those forms are characterized by various levels of complexity, regimes of energy consumption. So we're all worrying about peak oil and you know what's going to come after it, and we're exploring those kinds of questions. It's also about how do we learn as a species, how do we learn as societies, communities and individuals. These are big questions, but they fall within a kind of historical consciousness that we often are totally unconscious of. This is a question that we're going to explore in the world historical context, which is sometimes called the big history context. So you can see here we've got this cosmic evolution, the timeline, everything from about 15 billion years ago through to now. What does it all mean? Well, your guess is as good as mine, but it's a very interesting journey, and it's a journey that I've been enjoying telling for 15 years or so since I started teaching history of this kind. So welcome to Big History, welcome to World History, welcome to the history of humanity in the context of this cosmic evolutionary cycle. So, if we're asking, well, how do we get here? This implies that we're also asking, where are we going? Just as tricky, slippery a question as how do we get here, really. Essentially, before us lies a number of futures. Those futures are determined by place of birth, gender, culture. They're determined by the level of resources, i.e. the level of energy that we can pull together and coordinate in our individual and communal lives and so on. So we can't think about the future without thinking about the past. This means that we need to be past literate. We need to be aware of the elements that construct our meaning-making world. Culture is, after all, the sum of all our past experiences intersecting with us today in this world, our world. Your world, my world, parallel worlds, because my world is not your world. I was born many decades ago. I'm 61 now, and many of you will be, you know, in late teens, early 20s. Of course, there's possibly a person of 80 sitting out there listening to this lecture as well. But each one of us has had a unique journey with certain common intersectional points. So we're going to consider these things as well. Global citizenship. If ever there was a time when we needed to have some kind of handle on that, I think it's now. Just recently, Black Lives Matter has had people out in the streets in spite of COVID. COVID itself is a wake-up call to say, hey, we are globally situated beings. Might be local beings. We're here in Queensland. Those poor guys down in Victoria, you know, there's the COVID spike there at the moment. Australia, we're isolated to some extent, fortunately, because we're an island continent. Then there is the wider world. But COVID spread so rapidly around the globe indicates that we are globally situated beings. But are we truly citizens? Are we actually grasping the possibilities of citizenship? These are questions I think that we can ask in this course. Certainly I invite you to. So history helps us become literate citizens. In other words, we become aware of our pasts, plural, and how they construct the criteria around which we make decisions. The past, what we choose to take from the past, whether we choose to take an Indigenous Australian position or a white Australian position or a synthesis of those positions, whether we choose to think of ourselves beyond the Australian continent as truly globally, should I say, situated beings. This is a really important thing. And as I say, this does not mean, though, that being able to read or write is what we're talking about. No. Literacy in the sense of global citizenship or citizenship in general means being able to critically and consciously engage with our public discourses that are driving meaning-making today. So historical literacy means being able, I just said that, or sort of able to think clearly about complex issues and the forces shaping our world. It also means being able to ask questions, but not being hooked on any one answer. One of the things about academic life or scholarship in general is that single answers, silver bullets you might say, are very passé. No, we live in a complex world driven by multiple and layered forces. There's no easy way to engage with climate change or COVID or the bushfires or the historically driven goals of current governmental policy built around resource extraction and so on. Human civilizations, even pre-civilization, Paleolithic peoples, all needed to extract energy from their environment. Being alive organisms means we are extractive beings, whether you're extractive as an algae floating around in the ocean or a single-celled amoeba, or whether you're a complex mammal or anywhere in between, or a tree, we're all consuming energy at some level. So this course can help us rethink energy consumption within a historical and cultural and ecological context. It also means being able to assess propositions. Coal is what made us great. We need to guard our borders. Strangers are dangerous. The history wars, they are taking away white Australia's right to be proud in white Australia's traditions and achievements. Those kind of black and white statements are both true and false. Okay? There is always an element of truth, even in the most distorted statements. But it's the ability to leverage that in order to connect with the psychological, cultural, historical, emotional spaces from which those assertions come from, but not buying into them. We've got to look for broader context. It also means being empowered, simply knowing that I have agency, I can make choices that impact on my life. Maybe they enrich the communities either through my actions or through my expressions, and so on. Being able to articulate critically thought through positions so that we can engage with others without disenfranchising them. In other words, without disempowering the other. Citizenship, rooted in the traditions particularly of the West, with the democratic traditions from Greece, but also rooted in other traditions from India and China and other places like that, where there have always been spaces for cultural and political economic engagement. The incredible rich diversity in political expression in African village and regional pre-colonial kingdoms could be explored because there's so much there. So being empowered does not mean disempowering other people's either. So, little bit of a wrap there. So this is giving you a sense of where I sit and how this course is going. So in a nutshell, what can we say? Well, this course aims to get you started on the journey of thinking historically in a global context. It also aims to give you the skills and a degree of historical lessons to start thinking and acting as global citizens. So the course is about how to think historically, but it's also, well, let's pull in some historical data so that we can actually test, assess, but also demonstrate certain assertions. It's really, really interesting. We have these kind of big ideas, which I'm going to be talking about in the lectures that come. Big ideas like energy, complexity, and collective learning. They're the three that really shape this course. But there are others there as well. So we're going to do a little bit of a dance in between these points, should I say. So the course delivery itself, well, at least until week 4, we're going to be delivering everything online in line with the COVID restrictions that are placed upon universities, higher education institutions. So there's this girl looking at this guy online, teaching her how to do, I'm assuming it's a yoga position. There's going to be a 1-hour lecture and a 2-hour workshop. This is all laid out for you in the course outline. But the lectures are going to be designed very specifically. It's going to have a small, short grab, 10 to 15 minutes, like something like what I'm doing now. But there's going to be a 30-minute live Zoom lecture, which is going to be followed by a space where you can ask me questions. So the pre-recorded part, I'd recommend you watch it before you watch the live Zoom, so that my interactions in the live delivery are not lost on you. But I do promise to keep them really quite short. My goal is 10 minutes, but knowing me, because I like yakking along, it might be 15, but certainly they're going to be short, no more than about 5-6 slides usually. And then there's the workshops as well. So those workshops are going to be interactive, engaging. You're going to be asked to process, think, interact in groups as we unfold, and we will hopefully develop more sophisticated delivery and engagement skills along the way. And I'm speaking for myself as much as for you guys, but being comfortable to interact via Zoom through breakout rooms and so on is all part of the goal. Okay, so let's think of this. Let's start exploring. I want you to start exploring, should I say. The course readings are available. I'm going to make them open as soon as this lecture's sitting. This introductory lecture is sitting there. Okay, so I want you to remember that history is about reading. Sorry, guys. It is about reading. It's not about watching History Channel or other things. Useful. I do that sort of thing myself. But reading is the core, and you must commit to a certain chunk of time each week to get through your readings. I want you to Google and watch anything you can find on big history. Okay. So that's like online research. Start getting the bigger picture laid out for you. The course is delivered in the shadow of COVID-19. I'm kind of restating this. So this means online. So we need to show up. You need to show up. Okay. Show up for the live parts, because that's where we can interact. Experiment and explore as a community. So I'm with you. I'll be doing that as well. It's a brave new world out there. Great book, but also a reality at the moment as we sit in the shadow of COVID. So I want you, of course, to read the course outline and make sure that you mark assessment dates and start planning the trajectory of those, of your approach to the research and preparation of your learnings that are structured around where we're going with the assessments. I also look forward to working with you across the semester. Okay, whatever happens, I'm determined to have some fun with you all, and to really create an environment in which we can talk and discuss, regardless of whether we're face-to-face or not, some of the great big ideas for this course, and for you can take these forward in your life. All right, so there's a lot of fun ahead, and I hope this little introduction has been useful. Thank you very much.